I think we kind of have a sense that where the market is going is that there is going to be growth. I think we looked at what happened in the pandemic, and being in the moment, everybody thought, well, there's going to be a massive shift in everything. But the sense I'm getting from everybody is that I think we're just at a point where we're going to pivot slightly. The growth trends are going to happen. I mean, once there is a vaccine in place or there's better management in terms of the cases, that we're likely to return to some normalcy, back to the levels of demand that we saw pre-pandemic. It won't happen this year, probably won't happen for another year or two, but on the longer term, there is going to be demand for more office space. I mean, we have someone who is in the ICT sector who's given us reasons why they believe so. We have someone who represents the the manufacturing and distribution industry who certainly believes so, certainly for a country like Jamaica, where we will continue. And we've seen this play out in terms of the financial results of a bunch of firms that are in the food manufacturing and distribution business, where they've recorded significantly higher results in the second quarter, which is in the midst of the pandemic, that there is still going to be the demand for industrial spaces. The big challenge is now is how do you address the issues of the existing inventory and location, and is rates going to be a factor going forward? I think that is going to be the sort of combination and discussions that we'll continue to have. But it's clear that we can't make an exact determination of that just based on this one experience. But certainly going forward, we're likely to go back to normal. I believe that we are in an also interesting period, because Jamaica has become sort of the center of, certainly in the ICT sector, we see there's a high demand. But because of Jamaica's geographic location, logistics has become very important. And Stanley, I don't know if you could give us some thoughts as to whether you could see Jamaica becoming more of a regional or a global hub in terms of logistics, and what implication that may have for properties, industrial properties.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the short answer is yes. If you think about even the conversations that's been running in Jamaica for years, Jamaica is ideally located to be one of the major logistics hubs on our globe. But that's an established fact. And I believe that once we continue along the path of making the investments in developing the infrastructure, dredging of the harbor, expanding the port facilities, and making our systems more efficient at port to allow for transshipments through, I think we will continue to see, growth in the role Jamaica plays as a major logistics hub in this hemisphere. That's my optimistic view, and I can see no reason why, with proper management, that kind of evolution won't happen.
Right. So we look at, again, that's back to port side, where there is limited land space, lots of older buildings. So that to me also has implication for rates and valuations on those properties.
Yeah, but so when we think about it in terms of not just the infrastructure required to get onto the port, but look at the investments that are happening across the island in terms of the expansion of our road network.
Yeah.
Those investments form part of a system that will allow for the siting of manufacturing and distribution facilities further and further away from port, without losing the efficiency potential from manufacturing in Jamaica and getting your goods on a ship out to the international market. So it's we have developments at our ports. We have the development of our physical infrastructure within the country that, in my view, will support the continued expansion out of the traditional urban areas for more and more investments in manufacturing and distribution of facilities. There are a lot of other things that we have to get right as a country to realize that, but I see that as a future for Jamaica. I can't think of no reason apart from a deliberate attempt not to do it to prevent us from developing in that way,
Right. There was a question that came in. I know we spoke a lot about the ICT industry, and we've focused on it because it has been the fastest growing segment of the office space sector over the last 8, 10, 15 years. But there's a question about there are other companies, some of the large banks, and they even mentioned internationally how companies like Google and Twitter have said that half of their staff will work from home. What is the expectation about other companies in Jamaica? Are they likely to downsize? Those that are in large office buildings, there's some who, and Jermaine, you had mentioned before about you're seeing the impact with the parking lots, and parking lots are sort of adjunct to office spaces. What do you think is likely to happen with non-ICT companies who occupy office space?
Well, there will be shrinkage. Yeah, there will be condensation. People will try to. This is my opinion of what the future looks like. People will try to function from smaller spaces.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that you mentioned the parking lot, because that is a major revenue line for real estate investors. And with the reduction in the use of parking spaces, from the landlord standpoint, from the property management standpoint, we're losing revenue there. There was a time when you couldn't find a parking space in New Kingston. So yeah, but there's a direct connection with the use of the parking space and the occupancy of the buildings. So you can tell, it may not be an exact math, but you can tell what the usage of that space is like inside without even entering the building.
Right.
So with it's an economic game. If demand is less and the supply remains same, then it's natural that prices will go down. Rent will have to take a hit. And we also added another component of increasing maintenance. Right. To the tenant. The rent is one thing, rent and maintenance. It is the creativity of the landlord now and the property manager to balance those two components to see how best to get more on the rent side, which will be reflective in the value of their investment. So if maintenance is going up, demand is going down, it's natural that rental rates will have to reflect what market condition.
Right. But it's also likely that more companies will probably move in the direction of using technology, more in terms of the use of technology in terms of managing their business. If you're, operating a bank and you had a large branch, you're probably going to see shrinkage in terms of the size of the banking hall because you're moving more customers online. Most of those persons will have to talk to somebody on the other end, which feeds into Yanni's business. So I'm seeing that there could be a trade-off in one sense, whereas you may have a downsizing in the space that you need for a particular type of business, but you pivot into something else, So instead of having more tellers, you're having more persons who are operating at a call center. Is that a likelihood?
Well, Yanni, you want to take this one, but there's definitely linkages. I think Yanni can speak further on this.
Yeah. Yanni, you there?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes. It goes back to everything that I was saying is that the opportunities will continue to grow with this industry. Yes, there's going to be an eye of technology for an efficiency perspective. I think that, but a lot of that is going to go towards providing better service to the end user and a better experience overall.
Right. Okay. All right. That sounds good. Any final words, gentlemen? I think we've spoken a whole lot about what's going to happen in the commercial real estate space here in Jamaica. I mean, as I said, we didn't talk about retail, which I know that is a whole other animal. But any final thoughts, Stanley?
Well, what I would say is, someone said that energy is never destroyed. It just converts from one form to another. Real estate will always be something that's demanded. I think what we're seeing now with COVID, and we're seeing it, and I think the primary driver actually of the change in how space is utilized is perhaps going to be technology. Technology will continue to force manufacturers, producers, retailers to look at and repurpose space. So you will see, just as you're seeing in North America, you're seeing retail locations, large malls, pulling down the shutters because the business is going online. And while that is happening, you're seeing large malls being converted to massive distribution centers to support the online business. That in my mind is what is going to happen globally, and it includes Jamaica.
Absolutely.
So I think the key for us, particularly at this point, is to remain open and flexible, and to appreciate that the changes that, though they may disrupt how we currently operate in our space, those disruptions are going to create opportunities for redeployment and repurposing of that space for other activities.
Okay. Yanni, any final thoughts?
I would just say, while we are in a world of uncertainty right now, given what's going on, I personally feel, proud as a Jamaican as to how we have managed this thing as a country versus our counterparts regionally and internationally. Mm-hmm. And I would also say that, I, the head of our organization, is very confident about the future, and very confident that this industry will continue to grow and to be very effective with our economy locally, both at the GDP level, at the providing jobs level, and the support to the local economy.
Yeah. Jermaine?
Well, my last words is for landlords and property managers to use this opportunity to engage your tenants. Understand what they are feeling, understand how their businesses have been impacted by this pandemic. Let's start working on that partnership to get through this difficult time. While it is slightly daunting to some, it is also an opportunity, because in pandemics and when values of properties may reflect devaluation, it's a time to invest, because we will bounce back. They will be repurposing, as Stanley said and Yanni said, and real estate is always one of the strongest, if not the strongest, investment.
Yeah, I will agree with you on that. I mean, and maybe it's the bias because of the business I'm in, but I do believe that real estate still remains the most resilient investment asset class. And it's one that, people like to see quick returns sometimes, but one thing, real estate is very reliable. The other thing that I would reiterate with you is the need for landlords, to pivot a little bit, make some investments into the properties that they have, because there is going to be the demand. There's still going to be the sustained demand for for commercial space, whether it's in the office space or industrial properties. But thanks a million, gentlemen, for joining us in this conversation. Hopefully we can have more conversations about real estate investing, and we can probably look at not only Jamaica but other countries in the region. Thanks again, Jermaine Williamson from VM Property Services Limited, Stanley Beckford, project manager and business consultant, and Yanni Epstein from ITEL VPO. I just want to thank you, gentlemen, as well as those who joined in, whether it's via Zoom or Facebook or YouTube. Thank you for taking an hour out of your busy Friday afternoon just to listen to us talk about the very exciting topic of commercial real estate. And I'd also like to thank our investment analyst at Kingston Properties, Carl Stewart, for putting this thing together, as well as Stuart Atkinson of Prison Communication and his team for making this live all possible. And just on another note, I just want to remind persons that Kingston Properties will have their annual general meeting next Tuesday, August 18 at 10 a.m. We will be streaming that live as well as on our social media platforms. Thank you again all for joining us, and let's keep the engagement active and be safe all.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Take care.